Be back with you again here in the afternoon. So Danielle and I have had a series of video updates for you over the course of the day today. We had our live stream update that we did earlier. In fact, if you were watching on our streaming network, you were just seeing it now. But we wanted to bring you another update. So if you go onto our website, onedegreeoutside.com, or if you head into our app, and some of you may be watching on the app right now, Danielle has just updated a new Insights video, which is that deep dive into meteorology. She looks out to the next few days. So we're not really going to cover that here in this particular live stream. We're going to focus on what's been happening with the storm. Danielle also covered the fact that Providence has broken their snowfall record from the blizzard of 1978. That is a 2-day snowfall total. So that is really obviously impressive. Now, this isn't the first time that we've done this, right? We broke the blizzard of 78 record in Boston years ago with a storm, and I remember that one that, we've broken a lot of the blizzard of 78 records. We broke the blizzard of 78 coastal flood high tide record. We did that in a storm years ago in Boston. So in pieces and parts, we've taken apart that benchmark storm. But of course, for a lot of folks who were around for it, I was not one of them. But for those folks who were around for it, I certainly spent a lot of time studying that storm. That continues to be kind of the at least emotional and nostalgic benchmark. It was also, of course, a storm that in that particular instance had come in during the course of a commute, left folks stranded because of the fact that the snow fell so quickly and so fiercely while folks were out on the roadway and lasted for a couple of days, right? So in this kind of modern era, we get these storms that come in and they are supercharged with warmth and moisture when they come through. They blast very fast. They leave their damage and then they move along. And that's what's happened with this one. And this one will not soon be forgotten, obviously. If we're setting records to that regard, that's going to be one that goes into the history books for us. And that'll be one that Rhode Islanders will remember for a long time. But it's not just Rhode Islanders. Southeastern Massachusetts has been very much into this. I'm going to share with you some of the snowfall totals. Huge thanks to everybody who sends along your reports. Now, that's many of you who've been using our app and using the Send to Us tab of our app. We've been getting your videos. Actually, Danielle just posted a whole collection of videos and pictures onto our stream. If you watch that at onedegreeoutside.live or on your smart TV, you can find it there in the YouTube app by searching One Degree Outside Network. And Danielle just updated a bunch of the stuff that you sent along. But the other part of that is anytime you send any of those reports to us via the Send to Us tab of our app, that goes to the Skywarn Spotter Network, and that gets relayed to the National Weather Service, which helps the meteorological community at large. So you're helping everybody to stay kind of on top of the game. I will also say that there's a huge hats off here to the Skywarn Network. This is the network, thousands strong of observers across New England. They keep the observations coming, that take in the measurements that are so important, and relay the damage reports that are so important to this story, not only for this storm, but for really all of our weather events. So the unsung heroes kind of behind the scenes, the Skywarn Network, and we appreciate them very much. I want to start out with a couple of updates that are kind of critical updates right out of the gate. If you got this notification on our app, you may have already seen that we had put it in the push notification, but Eversource has sent out a text notification to residents on Cape Cod saying, quote, blizzard conditions causing monumental damage to the electrical system on the Cape and the islands. Hardest hit areas may take longest to restore. Please be prepared to be without power for multiple days. Dial 211 for warming shelter info. Next update tonight, and more at eversource.com. We wanted to share this with you because actually just a short time ago, probably about an hour ago, we actually did put out a web post, and I'm going to share that with you here on the screen just so you get a look at it. This is one that's up at onedegreeoutside.com right now. Blizzard safety update, staying warm, staying smart, and getting through this together. And if you go through that, you will find an entire collection of kind of just reminders. Not that we don't do this, in New England. We certainly are used to this, but we were starting to hear from folks who were using different methods of heating that you have to be really careful for, because obviously if you've lost power and you've lost heat, carbon monoxide is the biggest thing that you need to watch out for. So just a reminder, no charcoal grills, no propane camp stoves, generators inside your garage or near the door or window. Ideally, you'd like to have it 20 feet from your home, and I say ideally because I'm also a realist, but You get the idea, right? You want to make sure the exhaust is not in any way being fed back into the home. Along those lines, in spots where we picked up 2 to 3 feet of snow, remember about digging out the exhaust vents of the home. That's important too. Of course, you can dress with multiple layers if you don't want to do that shelter, but keep in mind what we just shared with you, right? Dialing 211 out on the Cape in your area for a warming shelter can be a great way to find out about where you can go if you need to. A lot of local towns have set up shelters or in the process of doing that right now. Closing off unused rooms. In terms of warming in the car, just keep in mind, right, that you want to make sure the car is outside because that exhaust would be another concern. And then in terms of the rooftops, many folks are motivated in events like this to get out there on the roof and particularly if you have a flat roof and shovel it off. Let's not do it while the wind is still blowing at 45, 50, 55 miles per hour. Just something to keep in mind there. And then down wires, assuming they're live. One of the things actually that we've been asked to pass along to you as well from the Skywarn Spotter Network is that they have been hearing from some of the first responders who have been saying, look, we've got a lot of folks who are trying to get out there and travel on the roadways, and this is causing a big problem because the roads are not good. As a matter of fact, there are still plow trucks that are getting stuck on the roads. And there's two reasons for that. One is because of the heavy weight of the snow. This was a wetter consistency than anything we've had so far this year. January storm that we had was a very lightweight consistency snow. This is not like that. And the other one is because they lose traction underneath the vehicles when they're trying to push this heavyweight snow. So what does it look like right now out on the roadways? Actually, I have some of that prepped for you, and I can give you a little bit of an overview. Let's take you back to the browser, and I'll show you what's happening here with regard to some of our webcams. Now, it's you start out in Western Mass, and actually things are fine, right? Ludlow, you've got blacktop right now. So you say, well, that doesn't seem to be much of a problem. Yeah, right. And then you start coming east of Worcester. It's definitely a different view when you make your way into Hopkinton. Now you start to get at least the slush and the snow that's on the lanes. And the farther east you go, the steadier the snow has been. So the Mass Pike now getting a little bit farther off to the east, coming in through Newton. This is a wintry scene for sure. This is going to be slick, but it gets worse, as you might imagine, in southeastern Massachusetts, right? Here's the view in Bridgewater right now. Snow-covered roads. Looks kind of like a winter tundra that's out there. We come down 24, and some of these cameras are just pointed straight down, which is smart. Mass DOT does that so they don't get all iced up and fogged up on you. But look at this. This is the view right now. Look at that. Fall River exit 8. I mean, amazing. Amazing look out at the roadway. I mean, we are just completely covered in a lot of these spots. And I won't belabor the point, but this is the Cape Cod Canal right now. We had the wind whipping earlier down at the canal. Now we've actually seen that wind let up, but the snow is still coming down like crazy. So you get the idea. In a lot of these areas, it is not real pleasant travel. We start coming north of Boston, same deal, right? I mean, this is along Route 3. This is Route 3 in Burlington, although it's misplaced on the map. That is the Route 3 north in Burlington, Cam. So you can see you've got snow-covered roadways there. 495, yes, it's sloppy and slushy. Is it getting better? Yes. Is it good? Not yet. So take that for what it's worth, right? That we've been asked to relay that to you, that folks are trying to get out there and trying to make their way along, but it's not working so well. What I want to do now is I want to give you an overview on where we stand. We'll go to the weather graphics. And what I'll do here is just, if you're watching this live, I am going to pause for a moment because I'm going to record this. And what we'll do is on our 24/7 weather stream, we'll end up using it for folks who maybe missed the live stream and tune in again in just a little bit. So with that, we'll get started and we'll take it away and I'll give you the rundown on what's happening with the latest on the storm. And then we're going to dive into the chat. If you are watching, you've got a chat feature, certainly at 1degreeoutside.live. You can utilize that. A little bit harder in the app and on your smart TV, even harder still. But if you can figure it out, if you're watching on social media, you can just leave a comment and I'll be able to see that. And I will look to the chat after I deliver this kind of presentation to you on where we stand in terms of the storm. So let's go ahead and we'll dive on in. Our February blizzard afternoon update for you. If you've lost power, please be aware of carbon monoxide risks. Again, be careful with what you're doing in terms of your heating. And keep in mind that we do have a safety post that's out on our website at onedegreeoutside.com. So you're able to check that out there and just kind of pass that along to family and friends if they're in areas that have lost power or have a lot of snow along the house and they may need to dig out the exhaust vents. We don't do this kind of a storm often, particularly with multiple days without power in the winter. So it's really important that we do get the word out and that folks are careful and safe. Plan on taking breaks shoveling. This is a heavy consistency snow. It is not super sloppy, but it's heavy enough that it's a workout. And so you want to be aware of that, and certainly taking breaks is important. That can put a real strain on the body, not just musculature, too, cardiovascular. Something to remember with that. The snow is going to be tapering. The wind is going to be stepping down. You're going to find one taper that happens during the late afternoon to early evening. The snow will be done for almost everybody by probably 8 or 10 o'clock this evening, even in eastern areas. And the wind is going to continue to blow tonight. That's why blowing and drifting will continue to be an issue for us really all the way through midnight, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., you get gusts of 25 miles per hour or greater, which is enough to cause the snow to blow back in. So not saying that you'll be completely snowbound all through that if you're in the areas that were not hardest hit, but I am saying that it's still going to be challenging for you at times. Peak wind gusts, you can see why the power outages compounded the way that they did. 83 miles an hour at Nantucket, Wellfleet 77 miles an hour, Quonset, Rhode Island 74, Norwell, Mass 73 miles an hour, Chatham hit 72. This is selected ones. There are others that were between about 70 and 76 miles per hour as well. And it's resulted in this. These numbers will be constantly changing. So if you're watching this on the stream over the course of the late afternoon and early evening, there will be some updates to them. But I think it certainly tells the story, doesn't it? That Barnstable County on the Cape, 83.5% of the Cape is without power now this afternoon, 35.5% when you get into Plymouth. Essex County, we had blizzard conditions for a while right at the coastline in Cape Ann, the North Shore. That certainly had an impact and caused some power outages. Bristol County, a lot of heavy snow that came down, not the same wind that Plymouth County had. Washington County, Rhode Island hit hard by both the snow and the wind. So it's been significant and it's had an impact. And that's something that's going to be really, again, multiple days that we're going to have to deal with here with regard to the impact that we're experiencing from the power outages. Select snow totals, told you about how Danielle mentioned in her video the Providence record. And again, you can find that video both on our app and on the website or on the stream for that matter as well. Dighton picking up 27.1, Taunton picked up 27 inches. And keep in mind, we're not done yet, right? We're going to add more snow. So while we are talking about the storm as if it's wrapping up, it's still got a few hours to go, and it's still coming down at a pretty good clip. There's the storm center. Beautiful center to the storm. It really was quite a swirl, quite a spiral that showed up. Matter of fact, what I could do is switch you over to the web browser and give you a really good image of that storm. Look at that storm center, really well-defined center of circulation, almost an eye-like feature when it came southeast of Nantucket. You can also see now that it is moving away pretty quickly, so that's why we're going to be looking for the improvement to set in. But this one was one that had a little bit of warm air at the center. We call that a hybrid system. It's not necessarily tropical in nature. It doesn't have that kind of tropical warmth, but the fact that it has a warmer center than the surroundings is oftentimes pretty interesting and indicative of the fact that you're going to get a pretty well-developed system, and that certainly is what we ended up with, right? In terms of the analysis on this system now, I can show you what we're looking at. Basically, the center of low pressure is going to be continuing to pull off the coastline and farther away from New England, so that turns the wind to blow out of the north-northwest and eventually out of the northwest and brings in some drier air that'll be with us. And right now, all those little dots that you see are snow reports coming in from you and from our Skywarn Spotter network, and we appreciate everybody who's keeping us posted. But really what I want you to focus on is the blue underneath. That's where our snow is still falling. We've had a nice hole develop over Gardner and Templeton, and that's been stretched all the way across Sturbridge. Those holes are going to get bigger. Essentially, that one area that's kind of left behind in western Mass, in western Connecticut, will be drifting off to the east and weakening somewhat. It'll still need to move through eastern New England, and that's why I say you're probably not totally done in eastern areas until you get to about 8 or 10 o'clock or so in the evening. In eastern Mass, we continue to see the snow coming down at a ½ inch to, in some spots, inch per hour rates. I'll show you the snowfall rate forecast hour by hour here in just a moment. And the snow has finally expanded along the Maine Turnpike. We were waiting for it to arrive to the coast of Maine and still anticipating on the order of probably about 4 to 6 inches of snow for the immediate coastline of Maine. Here is that analysis of the wind gust field around the storm. So again, this isn't sustained winds, but gusts, and it is extremely impressive. You still got 74-mile-per-hour gusts that come around the back side of the system. On the front side of the system, it's been very impressive. Maybe not quite what it was earlier. Remember, when we did this analysis earlier in the afternoon in our live stream, we had gusts that were going to about 84 to 88 miles an hour. We did, as I just showed you, end up hitting over 80 miles per hour in a couple of spots at the immediate shoreline. That is past. So the worst of the wind is done, and the worst of the snowfall rates is done for that matter as well, even though it's still coming down, and we look together at the fact that the roads are still a mess in a bunch of spots. Generally, once you get below 40-mile-per-hour gusts, we worry less about damage. We'll notice you're still at 40 at about 4:45. You see, well, yeah, but we already had worse winds. So would we still get damage? In some cases, yes, because you still have the limbs very much weighed down. And so this is going to put an extra strain on them. But you do take that step below 40-mile-per-hour winds by the time we get along about 7 o'clock or so. And then we take the next step down. Oh, I've gone back to the beginning here. We take the next step down in wind as we make our way even deeper into the course of the evening. So let's go ahead and show you what's going on in the snowfall rates. And we're talking about snow rates that come down to a ½ inch per hour by about 5:45 in the area that's in bright white along the coastal plain. Same thing when you get into eastern Maine. And the farther we go into the evening, the more we go down, really just about a ½ inch per hour snow, if that. By 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, you're wrapping a lot of this up, and there it goes. It's often moving off the coastline as we get to the remainder of the night. A reminder, by the way, that you can keep our app with you, and certainly this is a great way to stay on top of the weather. The other thing, though, is that this is how we get our push notifications across. So one of the things that we did earlier is we made sure to push notify, and the fact that we had the significant issues that were going on with regard to the travel problems we had when plow trucks were getting stuck. We wanted to make sure to get word out to people about that. Same thing when we push notified into some of the areas that were hardest hit with regard to the power outages and being careful with heating. So with that, I'm going to take a moment now and I'll switch over to the chat and see what it is you might have to share with me regarding the chat. I'll also share some interesting things with you in my web browser so we can take a look at some more storm stuff together. So seeing folks here, thank you for the updates. Thank you guys for making 1 degree outside a thing. If you didn't come, we wouldn't be able to do it. The storm was a dud here in Turners Falls, Mass. Lucky if 6 inches fell and the radar was useless most of the storm too. Big time shadow effect. Yeah, so we had signals that the shadow effect would be when you get basically from Greenfield northward through the Connecticut River Valley. It was much more significant than that, and it was a couple of things that led to that shadowing. One of those things was that when you get what we call a deformation band, which is this band of really intense snow that gets wound up, a lot of times you end up with sinking air outside of that band of snow. So really you have to know exactly where the deformation band will be before you could ever imagine to guess on where you would get the sinking air and kind of the lesser precipitation. You ended up very much in that. Same thing in central New Hampshire, where places like the Lakes region really mostly stayed out of this thing almost entirely. Todd says, driving back from Burke, Vermont, plan to leave around 5 p.m., driving to Newburyport. Oh, good. This is helpful for you. I'm glad to hear that. Kimberly says, thanks, folks. Still snowing hard in Hanson. You bet it is, Kimberly. Yeah, it's going to take a little while to wind down, too, as you just saw in that snow rate forecast. Love the 1 degree outside app. All right, I'm glad. Oh, good, and you deleted the other ones. Good, I'm glad to hear that. How do people measure snowfall on a day like this? What a great question. So, you know what? Danielle has done a great job, I'll say, teaching and training her sister. Hi, Jackie, if you're watching. So Jackie went out and took a total of, I think it was 6 measurements, which is exactly what you want to do. You want to take at least about half a dozen different measurements from different spots around the yard. Now, many of you are going to hear that and say, I'm not trudging through the snow to go take 6 measurements. And that's why those who do it are so special and so appreciated. And that's why I gave the big thank you right at the start of this, right? Because this is a big thing for us when we get these snow reports. Everyone likes to brag about their snow report. Not everybody likes to actually be the one to go out there and trudge through the snow. But in that report in the South Shore, that was 27.9 inches of snow, which fits in with just about everybody else and what you've been seeing. Plymouth here. Do you think crews can start working here? Amanda, yes and no. So the yes part of that is, look, bucket trucks and the crews that are in them need less than or equal to or less than 30 mile per hour wind gusts in order to get up there in a bucket. So that's one of the things that we don't have right now. We've got stronger gusts than that. But I also have found over the years of doing this that, and you guys know this, they are phenomenally dedicated. The line workers are phenomenally dedicated trying to get things back on, which means it may be blowing 30 miles per hour at the top of the trees. But if it's not right there where the lines are, they're working on it and they're doing all that they can. And that is, it's a huge hats off to them. I've noticed time and again, we'll still be officially gusting 40, 45, 50 miles an hour and power's going back on. So I know for a fact that they're out there and they're working on it tonight. In a storm like this, having talked with some of the power crew workers over the years, I can tell you that this is actually much better than an ice storm. In an ice storm, you might remember we had 11 days without power in spots. And the reason for that is because they have to actually chip the lines out of the ground when they've been frozen in by freezing rain. In this case, you need to find them and you need to lift them up, but you don't need to chip them out. And that does save a good amount of time. But obviously, when you're hearing something from Eversource like monumental damage that's been done to the electrical system, and they're telling folks it's going to take days to bring it back, that's a real thing. And if you missed that at the beginning, that is the message that Eversource is getting out to folks on the Cape and the islands here today, and encouraging folks to call 211 in order to try to find a warming shelter. So something to keep in mind there. Still swirling snow in Scituate, says Mariana. Okay, very good. And so, look, I want to give you a couple more ideas of what happened with regard to snow totals. If we zoom in a little bit, and this is some of that hard work that I was telling you about from the Skywarn Spotter Network. We've got a number of reports from Rhode Island. You can see 32.8 just outside of Warwick, running in across Rehoboth at 27, Raynham at 26. And again, remember, it's still coming down in all these spots. We picked up latest report anyway, 22 in Milton, Massachusetts, 16.5 in Westwood, right? And then the farther north you come, it was still over a foot, running all the way up into parts of the suburbs north of Boston. Woburn picking up 13, but that 13 observation was at 2:30, so that was an hour and a half ago, and it's still been snowing since then. We do have 13 and a half out in Fitchburg. Worcester has picked up over a foot, waiting on the official word on how much has fallen there at Worcester, because the last official observation from the airport was several hours ago. Here's some of the more recent wind gusts. I showed you some of the top ones, but that's a 71 mile per hour gust just prior to 1 p.m. at the Hyannis Airport, 66 miles per hour that was picked up at Scituate about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Not only have we been getting reports from folks on our app, which I mentioned to you earlier, that's relayed immediately over to the Skywarn Spotter Network. As soon as you submit it on the app, it goes over to them. But folks have been sharing with us too on Twitter. We appreciate Blair Perkins, who shared with us some of the view from Nantucket and what was going on there. Obviously, a lot was rocking and rolling here. Snow stuck sideways. Look at that. You've got inches of snow that accumulated sideways on the sides of these posts and on the sides of the boat. Pretty amazing, right? Really amazing stuff. Meanwhile, here's another one for you. This is some of the damage that was done in Chatham, Massachusetts, and this was from the Skywarn Spotter Network. We'll make that big for you. Some of the big limbs that came down, and this, look at that, snapped right off the top of the tree. And this is just one example. We've had a lot of different videos and pictures coming into this regard of damage that's been done. And I mentioned to you earlier that Danielle compiled a lot of that and got that together on our stream. So if you're not watching at 1degreeoutside.live or watching on your smart TV, do a search in the YouTube app for 1 Degree Outside Network, and you'll be able to find it there, and you'll be able to see what she's put together. I do want to let you know that we're coming up on coastal flood time. We just have passed, right about 4 minutes ago, we passed the high tide. I would love to show you what the tide gauges ended up recording, but you'll notice when we load it, there is no tide gauge to show you here because they all went out, they all lost power and they're out of commission. That's the case at Green Harbor. That's the case at Scituate. It should be minor coastal flooding. I don't think we'll exceed that. Nantucket, ironically, does still have power and still has an observation. And it looks like, what do we have here? Nantucket has crossed over down to 6.24 feet. So 6.24 feet is not quite moderate. Moderate would be 6.5. So we're not quite to moderate flooding at Nantucket, but nonetheless, we have seen some coastal flooding going on. A couple of things to keep in mind with that. On some of the roads that had water on them, they brought in chunks of ice because the bays have been iced over. So that means you have to understand it's going to take a little while for the town crews to get the ice cleared out of the road so you can drive on the road. So if you live at some of these coastal roads and you know water came across, it may be just a little bit slower to get open as a result of that. Let's see. We have on the chat, Dennis Mass, no power, but I appreciate all your tips for shoveling. Absolutely. And just be careful, Tess, with that no power thing, right? And the fact that we want to make sure that all the heat methods that you're using are safe with regard to carbon monoxide. We don't want to have any type of issues with the exhaust not getting out of the home, because that's one thing we know to be really careful for. Let's see. Danielle just told me that we actually got a new report that came in on through the app out of Dartmouth. And so she texted me while I'm on here and said, oh, you got to check it out. So let's go ahead and let's click on it and we'll see if we can see what this looks like. Again, we get these reports in real time when you send them along to us. Oh my goodness. Wow. Holy cow. That's the yardstick. And oh my goodness gracious. Dartmouth, Mass, where that's incredible. 33 inches of snow, Danielle says, is what was measured here. Whew. Does that tell the story or what? Wow. Wow. And look at the consistency of the snow. You can see the cracks in it. There's moisture content in that snow. That is not a light consistency snow. That is heavy stuff. Oh my gosh. And you can see why, of course, when you get down in the Cape, that monumental damage that was done to the electrical system, right? 72% of Barnstable is without power. Yarmouth, 76% without power. 68% of Dennis without power. 63% in Harwich. Sandwich, 70% without power. 92% of Falmouth is without power. 23,444 customers at Falmouth are without power. Plymouth, 77% without power. We come on to the Outer Cape. We lost the Provincetown reporting station when the power went down. We lost all reports out of there. And you can see why. 100% of Provincetown is without power. 100% of Truro without power. 100% of Wellfleet without power. Eastham, 100% without power. 98% of Brewster without power. And 88% of Chatham. Remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. So this is the latest update for you on where we stand with regard to what has been a powerhouse storm that came through. That storm now swirling off to the east. If you missed it in terms of the timeline, etc., I would encourage you to keep watching our stream. You can watch it in the app. It is linked right off of the homepage. You'll see the link to watch our 24/7 streaming network. You can go to onedegreeoutside.live on your computer, and that brings you right to the stream. And on your smart TV, you can pull it up in the YouTube app. Do a search for the number 1 Degree Outside Network. If you're without power, look, a couple things here. One, remember that warming shelter 211 number that went out. Also, keep our app handy with you. This storm is wrapping up, so I don't think we'll have anything too critical and crucial that we'll need to pass along to you. But if we do, we certainly will make sure that we push notify with that. It's the 1 Degree Outside weather app that you'll find in the App Store and Google Play. So I want to thank everybody for checking in here at the live stream. Again, we'll turn this around and get it back up on the stream as soon as possible. We've got several videos that are up there for you. And in terms of that heating safety and power outage safety post, you'll check that out at onedegreeoutside.com, and feel free to share that with friends and family so we can keep as many folks safe as possible. This is what we do here in New England. This was a big one. This was a historic one. But I know that we'll support each other, and particularly on southeastern Mass and the Cape. We got a whole fleet of folks that are headed down there to help you out with regard to electrical stuff, with regard to first response. So you help each other out, check on each other, check on those like the elderly who need someone to check on them, or folks that you know who lost power and may not have heat. Make sure that they're doing all right. Thank you, everybody. Really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for supporting 1 Degree Outside. We could not do what we do without you. We are New England's only weather network. Happy to say that. And we'll continue to cover you every storm, every season, and the sunny